let's talk about this. At that basketball game that Tennessee won, and it was awesome and an incredible environment. The students were back, which was really nice. You could tell on TV. It was markedly louder than any other home game Tennessee's had this season. Josh Heupel showed up with all of the recruits in tow from another junior day, the second junior day of January. And he not only showed up with them, but he showed up with all of the newcomers for the basketball team, the early enrollees. And he spoke at the game during a timeout. And I just wanted to talk about this because I thought it was awesome. I was listening to Tony Basilio does a post game after basketball games. I was listening to that. Somebody that was there, I wasn't there, I was just watching on TV, but somebody that was there said that the biggest cheer of the entire night, as loud as it was, the biggest cheer of the entire night was when Heupel took the floor and took the mic. And so let's just listen to what he had to say, and then we'll talk about Heupel and recruiting at the game.
Vol Nation, how we doing? God, I love showing up, man. You guys show up, show out 365 days out of the year. I don't care if it's kneeling right here at TBA, man. You guys are awesome. Student body, absolute best section in the country, man. Really proud of what these guys have accomplished in 2022. None of that happens without your guys' support. The journey's been fun the first 2 years. The best is yet to come. These guys right here are new enrollees. Let's give them one more round of applause. They just got started. And as we open up the 23 season in Nashville, we need to show up and make sure we got the right shade of orange inside of that stadium when we kick off. Let's be loud. Let's finish it. Let's go show the entire country what the right shade of orange is and who the real UT is.
He's so likable.
Yeah, I mean, when Josh Heupel was first hired, or when that news broke 2 years ago this week, I remember, I wasn't real familiar with Josh Heupel. Obviously knew who he was from his time at Missouri and knew that he had taken over there at UCF. But my perception was a lot like everybody else's perception. Like, okay, he took over Scott Frost's team. And we later found out that Scott Frost just kind of caught lightning in a bottle that 1 year. Wasn't that great of a coach in Nebraska. But I watched some of his press conferences and there wasn't a ton of energy. And it was like, all right, is this really the guy that's going to connect with Tennessee fans? I mean, just you put the football stuff aside, I always think about how they're going to connect. Butch Jones didn't really go over that well because he was from Michigan and he just wasn't a great fit in Knoxville, right? Pruitt honestly fit better. I mean, he felt like an SEC guy. He had an accent. He said all the right things. He kind of brought a different demeanor to the team. You can look back in retrospect and pick at things that he said, but at the time, I think most people were kind of all in on his personality and the way that he connected with fans. Heupel it's hard to explain, but he seems like almost like a different person than what I saw at UCF. And it's like he's still growing into the coach that he's going to be. I'm not sure he's even there yet. I think he's still going to keep progressing into a different personality, not a different personality, but just maybe a bigger personality. He seems so comfortable with himself when he goes out there and he's speaking off the cuff. It's not some rehearsed remarks. He just kind of spoke from the heart and connected with fans immediately. You start talking about the right shade of orange, the real UT. That stuff's going to get people fired up all the time when you're talking about Texas, especially with Rick Barnes' history with Texas. Just even more, attention on that game and even more important. At that moment, that clip there of him talking at halftime really kind of opened my eyes to, this guy is a lot different than when he first arrived. And take from that what you will. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good sign that he's, one, happy at Tennessee, and two, fully embracing everything about Tennessee in a way that really no coach has since Philip Fulmer was roaming the sidelines. I mean, guys tried. I mean, I'll give Butch credit. He wore orange everywhere. He embraced it, but he tried to change things up too much. He tried to put his own spin on things just a little too much. And Pruitt tried too. I mean, I remember how mad he got at that Alabama game when the officials kind of screwed Tennessee over a couple of times. And Pruitt was there saying, that's what happens when you play these guys. Like he gave it his all, but something about Heupel, it's like he doesn't even have to try. He's just kind of grown into it slowly, and it's been perfect.
it really is incredible. It reminds me honestly of Tony Vitello too. They're kind of this duo that I think have had a pretty similar path, both young coaches. That Tennessee was their first big opportunity. Now Vitello was an assistant before, and he became Tennessee's head coach. Heupel obviously was head coach at UCF before, but the first big opportunity at a major school, in a major conference. And Vitello, like I was at his very first press conference, and it was a little awkward. Everybody was just like, "Who's this guy with this flowy haircut that's showing up?" Like I like the cut of this guy's jib, so to speak, but can he coach baseball? And then he's become, as far as Tennessee fans go, I mean, he's the most likable dude on campus. He obviously has unbelievable teams, and he has this bravado and this awesome, just he plays into like the living meme that he is, kind of.
Oh yeah.
And it's so endearing and so awesome. And he gets it. He like gets the whole Tennessee thing. He understands the power of this fan base and he uses it. I think Heupel, over the course of this 11-win season, discovered that. It was him getting comfortable with what all of this craziness is, because obviously winning 11 games is going to get the Tennessee fan base to love you, period. Like, that's the best season since 2001 in football. We know everything that happened. Like, that's going to get this fan base to be, you're going to get the loudest cheer at a basketball game where Tennessee won to beat a top 10 team, like that's how much you're going to be loved at this school. And to see him build that comfort level and to get the whole, like, we're the real UT, the real orange, like it's so great. And I just, oh man, I can't like this enough, because the dude just keeps doing stuff even in the off season where I just go, yes, this is so great. Keep doing this. And it goes to sort of the overarching thing that we've talked about with this athletic department, where they're all pulling in the same direction. Everybody's getting along. Tony Vitello was at this game, and he looked, I don't know what he was wearing. It had like it was a Euros Plavsic t-shirt.
Dude, he was so into the game too. There was a picture, like Dick Vitale posted some photos, and there's one where he's taking a photo with the play-by-play desk, and people were kind of leaned into the photo, right? Kind of trying to get into it.
Yeah.
And down at the very end, you can see Vitello courtside, and this is like during maybe a timeout or something, commercial break. People were kind of relaxed in their chairs, and he's the only guy that's like leaned, hunched over, like intently watching the court and everything that's happening. I mean, that guy's such a competitor, and it's just so, like I hate to keep saying it, but it's so genuine what you get from Vitello, Heupel, and Rick Barnes. Like all three personalities, and they've all embraced Tennessee in their own unique way. Like you're not going to get Barnes being over the top and like out there just acting like Tony Vitello, wearing a headband, or maybe even some of the bravado of Josh Heupel. You're not going to get Heupel dressed like Vitello. You're not going to get Vitello, out there like Rick Barnes, talking to the media the way that Rick Barnes does. Like they all have their own unique approach, and they're true to themselves. They're not trying to be somebody that they're not, and it just works. Like those three complement each other so well, and it's been so fun to see the way that they support each other. I mean, seeing Vitello at those basketball games, it's awesome. I mean, and as popular as Tennessee baseball is right now, too, it just it puts the brand out there in general so much more, because they're going to show him every time he's at the game. They're going to talk about it. They're going to show Heupel when he's there, Vitello when he comes to football games, and it really is like a golden age of Tennessee athletics that we're entering. And it's important, I think, that people remember that, because you don't know you're in the good old days until you're out of them type deal. Like you're in them right now. So
yes.
Embrace it, enjoy it, have fun with it, talk junk to other fan bases, whatever it is. Like this is what you've been waiting for. So lean all the way into it.
I mean, and I'll say, to go back to Barnes a little bit, to that point, like for the people that are just like, it's a Final Four or screw this guy. No, like appreciate what's happening here, because it can be like Villanova and Jay Wright, where you win 2 national titles in the last few years and then the guy leaves and the thing just implodes. It can be exactly that. Like, don't forget how tenuous all of this is. And I don't think anybody's going to forget with football as of right now. Now, maybe if Heupel keeps winning at this level for another 3-4 years, sure, we'll get a little jaded. It happens everywhere. You end up being like an Alabama fan. You win all those national titles, and when Saban loses one game, you get pissed. Like, everything's relative. But yes, don't don't forget that it really is. When you think back to like what was just a garbage year, and they're not that far in the past. What in between?
Honestly,
when
just
Donnie,
look at 2020. I mean, the
well,
COVID year.
sure, yeah,
Football wasn't good. They were going to miss the basketball tournament, the NCAA
yep,
tournament that spring if it doesn't get canceled. Baseball was kind of it hadn't really burst onto the national scene the way it did. Like it was building steam. Like we talked to Ben
doing
McKee
good.
last week, and he talked about the buildup that he saw covering the sport every day, and then it got to the point where now everybody's you know all in on Tennessee baseball. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that really there wasn't a lot of national relevancy in 2020 at all for Tennessee. That's
Yeah,
just 3 years ago, 2-3 years
that
ago.
that recently. I mean, I was thinking back to when did Tyndall get fired? Yeah,
15, 14, 15.
15. So you had Tyndall get fired. Butch had blown that season when he honestly had a team that could have been in the playoff.
Yeah.
You did go 9-4, I guess, but
Yeah,
like
you should have beat Oklahoma. You should have beat Florida. You should have beat
exactly
Arkansas.
that season was
Should have beat
painful.
Alabama that
Yeah,
year.
that season was painful, even though it was better than some of the others. But you just think, and then obviously baseball back then was it was nothing. It was just a non-factor essentially at Tennessee. And you just think of how far you've come since then. Like, don't lose that perspective. Everything is relative. Don't lose that perspective. Anywho, as far as Heupel at this basketball game goes, I love it. It was a great moment that just shows between him and Vitello and everything, that just shows the synergy and everything great that's going on right now. And I wanted to mention it, but then it also goes along with this recruiting weekend. And at this point, we could go into everybody that was there. You had some real dudes there, Demarion Franklin and like some other like top level guys. But on Wednesday, again, I never like to reveal the guests that we're going to have before it happens, because I don't want to, if it ends up falling apart, I don't want anybody, to be named. We have a very good recruiting guest, someone who is very much in the know, has great information, and they're going to be coming up on Wednesday. So watch out for that on Wednesday afternoon. And we will get into the nitty gritty of what happened this weekend on the midweek show that we've been doing. So just watch out for that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you won't miss that when it comes. But a really great guest that knows Tennessee recruiting extremely well. I think everybody's going to enjoy. So
I did think one thing real quick about the recruiting weekend, nothing too in depth, but I did think it was interesting. You think about quarterbacks, right? You got Nico, but with college football recruiting, you always got to be looking for that next guy, especially with the portal depth. I mean, after Joe Milton's gone next year, who is the next guy? I mean, after 2023, right? Like, who is in 2024? It's Nico and who? So you got to always be recruiting that position. They had George McIntyre come in. That's a local guy, from Brentwood, from the Nashville area. Top 50 player in the country, number 1 player, I think, in the state in the 2025 class.
I think
6'5". I mean, that's a guy that I feel like you've got to have him end up at Tennessee. I know Vanderbilt's kind of in the mix there. I think he's got some family connections. You cannot lose a top in-state player like that to Vanderbilt, especially at the quarterback position. So be interesting to see if that ends up being like Tennessee's guy in that class. I think it's still a little too early to determine. I think maybe by this fall and moving into next spring, we'll know for sure who their 2025 guy is that they're going to kind of go all in to get, like they did with Nico. But you got to feel like if you have that guy in state, that he's going to be pretty high on that list.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a whole set of dudes that are going to be really key for the future, and really, really guys that you want to take advantage of this 11-win season. And, I think you can speak to them through great results like that. Like, that's really where you can get some of these guys, is by being like, hey, we're back in the top echelon of college football. There's a lot of guys like that were here this weekend. And the good news is, compared to the weekend that happened with the Kentucky game, you went out and you kicked Texas's butt and you showed them a great time. Heupel went out there, got a giant cheer. And it wasn't just Heupel, it was the young guys. So obviously this was very strategic and a great marketing move in general on Heupel's part, or whoever made this decision. But they brought in those the new guys, and in front of the recruits had the new kids on the football team get a giant applause at the basketball game. I mean, it was very purposeful, and that's great. I love it. I think it's awesome. So you showed them a really good time, showed them a great basketball game, and hopefully it translates into dudes coming to Tennessee.
Those basketball games are becoming huge recruiting weapons. I mean,
Yes.
not a lot of places have that kind of atmosphere. I mean, there's a lot of great college basketball atmospheres, obviously, but most of those places aren't football schools, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
not going to, you might go to Chapel Hill and Carolina, UNC's, they've, they're done better in football with Matt Brown there, and they've recruited pretty well, but that's kind of not really what they're known for. Tennessee, to have that kind of atmosphere to show football recruits in January, I mean, they did it with Nico last year, and he ended up at Tennessee. I remember when we were watching those videos of him attending that basketball game, we're like, oh my God, like Tennessee might actually have a chance to get this kid. And then
don't forget, he referenced the basketball game that he visited in his commitment video.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about
chanting his name.
Yes, they chanted his name, and they I don't know if it was in the commitment video, but they talked to his mom, and she said that was like really special and such a crazy thing. Like, don't discount that. I think people probably overemphasize those recruits seeing a loss. Like, there were some people that were like, oh, they saw that Kentucky game and it was so bad. And like, I don't know if that counts that much. But don't underemphasize how that environment, like, you're essentially showing them the power of this fan base and what they're going to be playing in front of in football. Because you look at what's there at the basketball game and you go, oh, well, it's going to be 10 times this.
Plus, you want to go. You want to go to those events if you're on campus. If you're an athlete at Tennessee and it's January and you're a football player, you want to go to a basketball game that's got a lot of energy. I mean, if you look on Instagram and you follow any of the players, there's a bunch of current players that were at that game on Saturday, just sitting in the stands in random places. Like, they got tickets. I saw like Kamal Haddon on Instagram trying to find a ticket to the game. Like, they were hard to come by, and it wasn't
Really?
just simple for a football player to just walk in. I mean, you think it's 100 and some players on a team. It's probably not that difficult for Joe Milton to get a ticket, but maybe some others. But regardless, I mean, that's also a selling point because it's the middle of the winter. Yeah, let's go watch this Tennessee game. It's got a ton of energy, at 6:00 on a Saturday. That's more attractive than you go to, Georgia and you want to watch a basketball game there on a Saturday. It's not quite the same environment at all. So I think that can be a selling point as well.